Story 1. If you ever hear your name whispered in the dark when no one is around, don't listen. That's the first thing I want you to remember. Don't turn, don't answer, don't even breathe too loudly. I learned this the hard way, on the night my friends and I dared to spend the night in Blackwood Cemetery. It was past midnight when we climbed the iron gates. The cemetery sprawled in front of us like a field of cracked teeth, crooked gravestones jutting out of the ground, some leaning, some broken, all of them covered in moss and shadows. The air was heavy, the kind of quiet that makes you whisper without knowing why. There were 6 of us: me, Ryan, Claire, Marcus, Lily, and Devin. We were bored college kids, always hungry for dares that pushed the limits. Ryan had suggested it after a few beers. Midnight in Blackwood, stay till sunrise, no phones, no flashlights, who's in? One by one, we agreed, laughing like idiots. But when we finally stood in that graveyard, the laughter died quickly. At first, it was just the wind sighing through the trees, the hoot of an owl somewhere far away. We spread out blankets near the oldest part of the cemetery, right where a crumbling angel statue stood watch. Devin kept joking, but even he sounded uneasy. That's when we heard it, the whisper. It was faint at first, like someone breathing too closely behind you. We all turned, expecting a prank, maybe someone else who had followed us, but there was no one. The cemetery was still. Then the whisper came again, longer this time, harsher. And then it said Ryan's name. I'll never forget the way his face changed. It went from amused to pale, like he'd just seen his own death. Very funny, Ryan muttered, glaring at Marcus. How the hell did you say that right in my ear? But Marcus shook his head. Dude, I didn't say anything. Before anyone could argue, Claire gasped. Her head whipped around, eyes wide. She swore someone had whispered her name too, but what chilled us all was what she said next. They told me about the diary. We stared at her. Claire looked sick. What diary? Lily asked. Claire stammered. No one's supposed to know about that. It was private, from when I was a kid. I burned it years ago. The silence after that was worse than the whispers. One by one, we each heard something. Marcus first, his parents' divorce, the real reason he'd refused to visit his father. Lily next, the time she almost drowned when she was 12, a secret she never told anyone, not even us. And then me. I tried to convince myself it was just the power of suggestion, that fear was tricking my ears. But then I heard my name, said so softly it felt like the breath was curling against my skin. And after my name, it spoke a secret. It told me about my grandfather. No one knew about that night. I was just a child, awake past midnight when I shouldn't have been. I had overheard an argument, ugly, violent, between my father and grandfather. The next morning, my grandfather was dead. Everyone said it was a heart attack, but I had heard things that never left me, things that made me wonder. The whisper coiled around me, repeating words I'd kept buried for years. I felt the ground tilt beneath me. Devin started shouting then. He claimed the whisper told him about the accident, the one that killed the boy down the road, the one Devin always swore was an accident. Now he screamed at the graves, I didn't mean to! Shut up! We tried to drag him back, but the whispers grew louder. Hundreds of them, overlapping, hissing. Not just names anymore, but please, help us, hear us, join us. The ground beneath the angel statue shifted. I swear on my soul, I saw the soil tremble as though something beneath was pushing upward. Several graves around us began to crack, dirt loosening as if restless bodies were turning just inches below. We ran. We didn't care about the dare anymore. Didn't care about pride or promises. We vaulted the cemetery gate, lungs burning, hearts hammering. When I looked back, just once, I saw Devin still inside. He'd fallen to his knees, clutching his head. And the earth where he knelt was sinking, pulling him down as if it had opened its mouth. We never saw him again. The others won't talk about that night. Ryan transferred schools. Marcus refuses to visit cemeteries. Lily gets sick at the sound of whispering. Claire won't even acknowledge it. But me? I can't escape it. Because the whispers didn't stop. Even now, years later, sometimes when the night is very quiet, when I'm lying awake and trying not to think of Blackwood Cemetery, I hear it again. My name, breathed slow and patient, and each time the voice tells me something I shouldn't know, about friends, strangers, even myself. Things buried, things rotten, things best left down in the dark. I think they marked me that night. I think they're waiting. And I know one day, no matter how far I run, no matter how I fight not to listen, I will have to lie down and join them. Story 2. They tell you cemeteries are quiet, peaceful places where the living can remember the dead in silence. But that's a lie. Cemeteries aren't quiet. If you stay long enough, if you really listen, you'll hear it. The soft groan of shifting dirt, the faint scratch beneath the ground, like fingernails dragging against the coffin lid. I learned this one year, on the night I visited my grandmother's grave, and I wish to God I had never gone. It was the first anniversary of her death. My grandmother had raised me, practically been my mother. When she passed, I swore I'd always visit her grave on that date, to talk with her the way we used to. That evening, the cemetery felt wrong the moment I entered. The air smelled of damp earth even though it hadn't rained in weeks. The wind barely moved the branches, but every time it did, the shadows stretched like long, grasping fingers across the stones. Her grave was near the back, beneath an old oak tree whose roots had cracked several nearby tombs. When I reached it, I froze. The soil around her headstone looked disturbed, loose, as if dug up only hours before. Her flowers, which I had placed the week before, were gone. My first thought was anger. Vandals. Kids playing sick jokes in a cemetery. I dropped to my knees, brushing my hand over the dirt. But the moment my fingers pushed down, the ground gave way, like a sudden sinkhole swallowing itself. I gasped as a chunk of soil collapsed inward, revealing a dark hollow beneath. And inside that hollow, my grandmother's face. Perfectly preserved, skin pale but not decayed, lips pressed shut, eyes shut tight. She didn't look dead. She looked asleep, as if she had been waiting for me. My entire body locked up. Every instinct screamed at me to run, but I couldn't move. My brain struggled to make sense of it. She'd been buried for a year. There should have been nothing, bones, ashes, rot. Not this. Not her staring back at me, untouched by time. My mouth went dry. My pulse hammered in my throat, then her eyelids twitched. I made a sound I didn't know I could make, half scream, half whisper. Her lips parted slightly, the way they used to before she told me something important. I saw the faintest pulse of breath stir the loose dirt around her mouth. She was going to speak. I scrambled back, tripping over my own feet, but my eyes wouldn't leave her face. Her lips trembled, forming shapes, and the sound that came out was a dry rasp, like wind slipping through hollow wood. I leaned closer without meaning to, compelled, desperate to know what she was saying. "Down here," she croaked. "We are not at rest." The words slithered into me like worms crawling under skin. Not alone, not at rest. We. The earth beneath her shifted again, softly at first, then violently, as if the ground itself was breathing, straining to rise. I saw movement deeper in the soil, shapes pressing upward against the dirt, hands, faces, outlines of bodies that should have long since rotted. I staggered back. My grandmother's eyes shot open. They were white, milky, but they locked on mine with such fury that I felt speared to the spot. Her mouth opened wide now, and that sound wasn't her voice anymore. It was a scream made of many screams, dozens, hundreds, all shrieking at once. The soil around me trembled, graves splitting open with muffled pops. I saw cracks forming in the earth, shapes writhing beneath. Not one, not just her, all of them. Every grave around me shifting, struggling, as though the entire cemetery had woken up. I don't remember much after that. I ran, I think. I remember stumbling between headstones, crashing into the gate with bloody hands, sprinting into the street like a madman. But I can't forget her face, the way she looked at me, how her lips shaped words I cannot stop hearing. Down here, we are not at rest. Now, a year later, I still dream of that moment. Sometimes, I wake in the night and smell damp earth in my bedroom. Sometimes I hear faint thumps beneath the floorboards, little scratches beneath the bed. I tell myself it's the house settling, that it isn't real. But deep down, I know, because every time I close my eyes, I see her, my grandmother, lying there beneath the ground, skin untouched by death, lips trembling, waiting for me to come back. And I know one day I will, not because I want to, but because she's calling me. Because they all are. Story 3. People think cemeteries are only frightening at night. That's not true. In daylight, among flowers and sunlight, when everything looks calm, that's when they catch you off guard. That's when you least expect the dead to reach out. I know, because one quiet afternoon, on my shortcut home, I walked through Ashwood Cemetery, and I saw them. It had been a warm day, the kind that makes the air shimmer. The cemetery gates were open. I often cut through there to save a few minutes. Usually, it made me feel peaceful. Stone angels, lines of flowers, the constant hum of cicadas. That day, though, as I walked beneath the arch of oak trees, I heard laughter. Thin, high laughter, the unmistakable sound of children playing. I stopped. Who lets children play in a cemetery? The sound rang sharp in the stillness, bouncing between tombstones. It came from near the old mausoleum, a squat stone building stained black with age. As I drew closer, I saw them. 2 children, a boy and a girl, maybe 7 or 8 years old. Their clothes looked a bit old-fashioned, simple shirts, knee-length shorts, a frilly dress on the girl. They darted around the mausoleum, giggling, calling to each other in sing-song voices like, "You can't catch me!" I felt relief. Just kids, probably wandered in. I even smiled a little. They looked normal, too normal almost, but at least harmless. "Hey there," I called softly, walking closer. "You shouldn't be here. This is a graveyard." They froze. The laughter cut short, as though someone had pressed pause. Both their little heads turned toward me exactly at the same time, and that's when my relief drained away, because they weren't looking at me. Their eyes, wide and pale, didn't focus on my face at all. They gazed through me, straight through my body, as if I were invisible. A cold sweat broke across my arms. My voice faltered. "Come on, kids! Where are your parents?" They didn't blink, didn't move. Just stared through me with those glassy eyes. Against my better judgment, I turned to see what held their attention. At first, I saw only shadows. The sun was lowering, casting long black shapes between the gravestones. But then I realized the shadows weren't random. They were forming something. A figure. A towering, misshapen figure stretched long across the ground. Its limbs were crooked, too angular, like broken sticks jammed together. Its head tilted unnaturally to one side, as if a neck had snapped and frozen that way. It was pointing. The shadow's jagged arm reached forward, finger extended, aimed straight at me. I staggered back, heart pounding, and the gravel crunched so loud under my feet, it broke the spell. I turned again toward the kids, only they weren't by the mausoleum anymore. They were closer, a few feet from me now, standing side by side, hands clasped. Their small bodies blocked the path. Their smiles had vanished. The girl tilted her head. Her voice was soft, wrong, like echoes inside a hollow jar. "He chose you." I stumbled backward. What did you say?" The boy's lips stretched into a smile too wide for his face. "He's been waiting." Behind them, the mausoleum door creaked. The heavy iron hinges screeched as if they hadn't moved in years. A rush of damp air spilled out, carrying the stink of mold and something coppery, metallic. "No," I whispered, my legs already moving in retreat. The children giggled again. But it was different this time, low and broken, as if something else was laughing through their throats. And then they darted, lightning fast, back behind the mausoleum, disappearing as if the stone had swallowed them whole. I turned and ran. I didn't care that I was stumbling, scraping my shin against a tombstone, nearly tripping over roots. I just ran until the iron gates of the cemetery loomed ahead, until I burst into the street and collapsed on the other side. When I finally dared to glance back, I saw it, just for a moment, the shadow figure. But this time it wasn't on the ground. It stood upright at the center of the cemetery, towering, long finger still pointed straight at me. It's been weeks since that day. I don't cut through the cemetery anymore. In fact, I don't go near it. But sometimes, in the late afternoon, when the sun throws long shadows across my room, I see it. On the wall, stretching long and crooked from nowhere, a shadow with a tilted head and a pointing hand. And sometimes beneath the window I hear it, 2 children laughing. But I know there aren't any children outside. They're still in Ashwood, still waiting near the mausoleum, and one day they'll stop waiting. One day when the shadows fall just right, the figure will step through, because the children were right. He chose me. Story 4. They say a photograph steals a piece of your soul. I used to laugh at that, until I learned what a photograph can give back. Until I saw what else a camera can catch, the things our eyes are not meant to see. I don't laugh anymore. Not after what happened in the cemetery that morning. I've always been an amateur photographer. Nothing professional, just a hobby. Old buildings, peeling paint, forgotten corners most people avoid. They catch my eye. That's how I ended up at Hollowfield Cemetery on a foggy dawn in late autumn. The place had been abandoned for decades. The gates rusted, the stone path buried under weeds. I'd heard it was haunted, but to me that sounded like perfect material. Mist curling around weather-worn graves, an ancient stone angel with broken wings. Just the sort of gothic scene I loved capturing. I remember how quiet it was. No birds, no dogs barking, not even the hum of traffic. Only my footsteps crunching gravel and the click of my camera shutter. For an hour, I walked in circles, snapping dozens of photos. Light slipping through mausoleum cracks, names fading from headstones, ivy strangling marble crosses. I was so caught up in it, I didn't even realize something felt wrong. Not until later. It started when I sat on a fallen slab to review the shots. At first I was pleased, mist hanging just right, colors moody and rich. But then I noticed it. In the corner of one photo, a figure, pale, still, tall, standing between 2 tombs in the distance. I frowned. I didn't remember anyone else being there. Shrugging it off, I clicked to the next picture and froze. There it was again. Same figure, a little nearer this time, though I hadn't noticed anyone moving. I went through them quickly then, my stomach tightening with every photo. Each one, the figure was there. Always at a distance, always blurred but unmistakable. Pale skin, thin frame. Clothing I couldn't quite describe, like old garments smoothed over with static. Behind me every time. I swallowed the lump in my throat, laughing nervously to myself. Maybe some early jogger messing with me. Maybe a lens trick. But then I reached the final photo. The one that still makes me wake in a sweat. It wasn't in the background anymore. The pale figure was beside me. So close its shoulder brushed against mine. only half formed, like it hadn't fully stepped into the world yet. Its face was a blur of motion, not out of focus, but wrong, as though still deciding what features to wear. Its head tilted toward me, leaning in. And the worst part, my expression in the image. I was smiling, looking straight ahead, unaware of what loomed inches from my ear. My hands went cold. I dropped the camera. The sound echoed too loudly in the cemetery's silence. And then behind me, footsteps, slow, crunching gravel. Oh. I didn't want to turn. Every nerve in me screamed, "Don't look." My heart hammered so hard it hurt, but the footsteps stopped right behind me, close enough that I could feel the pressure of something standing there, casting no shadow. I forced myself to glance at the screen again, desperate. My hands shook as I hit the live view. The lens showed the row of tombstones ahead, empty. Nothing beside me. But when the image flickered for just a heartbeat, I saw it. The pale figure filling the frame. Closer than ever, it's not quite a face bending toward me like it was about to whisper. I ran. I didn't look back. I didn't stop to collect my breath until I was past the cemetery gates, gulping air like a drowning man. When I finally dared to check the camera again, every last photo was gone. The memory card registered full, but the files were scrambled, corrupted blocks of static and warped light. Except for one, the last photo still remained, the one of me, sitting calmly on that broken slab, with the figure leaning in. Its hand stretched toward my shoulder, but there's a detail I hadn't noticed before. This time, its face wasn't blurred. It was mine. That was 3 weeks ago. I haven't touched the camera since, but the damage was done. Sometimes when I catch my reflection in the mirror, it lags for a second too long. Smiles when I don't. Sometimes in photos my friends take, there I am twice. One me smiling at the lens, and another, pale and half-formed, standing just behind. They say a photograph can steal a piece of your soul. I don't think that's true. I think it copies it. And one day soon, when that copy finishes becoming, I'll be the one fading from the picture. Story 5. If you ever hear music at night where there shouldn't be any, don't follow it. No matter how sweet it sounds, no matter how much it tugs at your chest, that's how it starts, how it lures you closer. I know, because the last song I heard was not sung for the living, and I lost her to it. It was close to midnight when Rachel and I went walking. We often did. Our town was quiet, nothing to do, and we'd wander just to talk about life, worries, anything. That night, cool air carried the smell of wet leaves. We cut down a deserted road and drifted past the gates of Hollow Creek Cemetery, the oldest place in town. That's when we heard it. A voice. Soft, almost like wind at first, but I knew it was music. A song. Slow, mournful notes rising from the earth, weaving between the crumbling stones. "Do you hear that?" Rachel whispered. I nodded. The tune was faint but beautiful, sad in a way that made my throat tighten. The melody felt alive, like it was reaching out, finding us. We should have walked away, but instead, we followed. Inside, the cemetery seemed endless. The song curled around every corner, pulling us deeper until we stopped beside an unmarked grave. The air there felt different, heavier, as if the ground beneath was a drum carrying the music through its soil. The singing grew louder, clearer, a woman's voice, aching and perfect, as if centuries of sorrow had been wound into every note. Beside me, Rachel's eyes glazed. She tilted her head slightly, lips parting. Without realizing it, she began to hum along, low and soft at first, then stronger. Goosebumps crawled over my arms. "Rachel?" I said, touching her shoulder. She didn't answer. Her gaze had fixed on the earth before us. At the edge of the path yawned a dark hole, an open grave, fresh and bottomless in the shadows. She stepped toward it. At first I thought she was just drawn by curiosity. But then I saw the way she moved, slow, steady, almost ritualistic. Her foot slid forward as if she were on a stage, walking the first steps of some performance. The song swelled, louder, sweeter, and Rachel followed like a puppet on a string. "No, no, no," I stammered, grabbing her arm. Her skin was clammy, stiff under my grip. She turned her head just slightly toward me and smiled. Not her smile, not the one I loved. This one stretched too wide, her cheeks pulled unnaturally tight. Her eyes glimmered with something that wasn't human. "Rachel, please," I begged, tugging hard. But whatever had hold of her was stronger than me. She wrenched free and kept walking, humming in perfect harmony with the voice below the earth. I saw her toes curl at the edge of the grave, and before I could stop her, she descended into it, not falling, not scrambling down, but stepping with elegance, as if the pit were a stage waiting for her entrance. The music peaked, layered voices rising to meet her. I stumbled back, covering my ears, but it was inside me too, pressing against my chest, clawing at my thoughts. I screamed into the grave, shining the weak beam of my phone light. Rachel looked up at me from the shadows, her mouth moved, still humming. And then, in a voice not her own, she whispered, "Sing with us." The soil trembled. More voices erupted from beneath, thousands of them, singing in jagged harmony. I saw hands pushing up from the dirt around the pit, thin, pale hands with broken nails, grasping for air. The graves around me bulged and shifted like lungs gasping for breath. I ran. I don't remember how I escaped, only the pounding of my heart, the blur of headstones, the echo of that song following me beyond the gates. It's been months since then, but the memory has never dimmed. They never found Rachel. The police searched the entire cemetery, even that fresh grave. They said it was empty, just earth. No footprints, no body, no sign she was ever there. But I know. Sometimes when the night is too still, I catch a melody beneath the silence, dragging itself through my walls, rising up from the floor, and worst of all, sometimes I hum along before I even realize it. My lips move, shaping notes I don't know, in a harmony that feels practiced, rehearsed. That's why I don't sleep much anymore. Because I know they're still singing, and the song isn't finished yet. One day, when the voice creeps up from under the ground, louder than ever, I'll hear Rachel again, and when I do, I won't be able to resist. I'll follow, humming softly, step by step, into the pit that waits for me like a stage. Story 6. People talk about ghosts as if they're fleeting things, shadows, whispers, faces at windows, but the dead don't always float. Sometimes they keep working. Sometimes their hands never stop. That's what I saw in Hollowvale Cemetery, and I wish I'd left the gates locked. I wasn't alone that night. My friend Daniel and I had taken up urban exploration as a hobby, sneaking into forgotten places and photographing what others avoided: factories, asylums, tunnels. That evening, it was the Gothic spires of a Victorian cemetery on the east side of town, long closed, its stones crooked as rotten teeth. The iron gate gave way under our push, creaking so loud it felt like someone groaned awake. Inside was a forest of leaning obelisks and broken angels. The fog clung low, muffling everything, so our footsteps and laughter seemed wrong, too loud. We wandered, snapping photos when we spotted it. A small lean-to shed near the gravekeeper's house, leaning against the weathered wall. The door hung half open. Out of habit, Daniel pushed inside. It smelled of rust and damp earth. Against the wall leaned ancient shovels, their blades caked with brown soil, as if they had never been washed. A cracked lantern hung from a nail. And on a warped wooden table lay a book, a journal, its leather cover flaking to dust. I opened it carefully. The pages were yellowed, filled with cramped handwriting that sloped like falling rain. Entry after entry spoke of labor, digging, sealing, filling. The writer spoke not of burial, but of duty. One line still burns in my memory. To keep the spirit satisfied, I dig. To keep them still, I bury. If I stop, they will rise. The dates stretched back more than a century. Each entry grew more desperate, the writing frantic, smudged as if carved with trembling hands. The last page ended abruptly, mid-sentence. They are louder tonight. They are climbing. A sound cut through the silence then. Rhythmic, hollow, steel-piercing soil, the sound of digging. Daniel and I froze, staring at each other, then at the open doorway. It came from deeper within the cemetery, steady, relentless. Against reason, we followed. Our breaths came fast, misting the air. The sound grew louder, clearer, until we craned around a row of slanted stones and saw him. The digger. At first, I thought it was just some groundskeeper, hunched over a half-dug grave, shoulders swathed in a heavy, century-old coat. His arms rose and fell, shovel-biting earth, soil scattering at his feet. He never looked up, just dug. Something in me wanted to call out, to explain, but the words stuck. Because the way he moved wasn't right. The coat draped over him like damp rags, and underneath, his body looked too thin, as if only sticks held him up. Then he turned. The lantern light caught his face, or what was left of one. The skin clung tight to bone, sunken hollow around sockets that glowed faintly, like embers deep behind glass. Soil spilled through his finger bones as he gripped the shovel, yet he did not falter. His arms moved with mechanical duty. Scoop, lift, drop. Scoop, lift, drop. I stumbled backward, hitting a grave marker, my camera slipping from my hands. Daniel's mouth hung open, no sound coming out, his flashlight trembling. The digger stopped. Slowly, the skull face tilted toward us, jerking stiffly. Dirt dripped from his rotted jaw as if he were breathing the earth itself. And then, he spoke, a voice like gravel sliding into a coffin. They must not rise. The ground must be fed. Help me. His empty sockets burned into me. He thrust the shovel forward toward Daniel. Soil slipped between his skeletal grip, landing in wet clumps. Take it, he rasped. If I stop, they wake. The ground shifted beneath our feet then. Faint thumps, muffled knocks, like fists hammering from under the soil. Graves around us rippled, earth trembling as something pressed against the surface. Daniel bolted. He sprinted past the stones, his flashlight beam bouncing wildly, vanishing behind the fog. I couldn't move. The digger hadn't chased. He had turned back, swinging his shovel, digging faster now, frantically, muttering words that melted into broken growls. Each scoop seemed to quiet the struggling ground, but only for seconds. I ran then. Not back to Daniel, not to the shed, not even to the gate at first. Just ran, slamming into stones, scraping my arms bloody, until I found the way out and collapsed against the iron bars outside. The next morning, I returned with the police. There was no journal, no shed, at least not standing. Just rotten beams collapsed in a heap, shovels buried under leaves. No half-dug grave, no figure. But Daniel never came back. And even now, sometimes at night, when the wind is low and the earth damp, I swear I hear it again. Scoop, lift, drop, a shovel biting into the soil. And each time, I imagine him still there in Hollow Vale, his duty endless, his body long dead, feeding the ground one spade at a time, and I pray he never stops, because if he does, I don't think the dead will stay buried. For more stories like this, share and subscribe Goofy Horror.